Hi, I'm Sarah Brunstad. I'm an associate editor at Marvel Comics, and I was the lead editor on the Marvel Indigenous Voices one-shot that's coming out in just a couple of weeks. And I'm really excited and honored to be here with the museum.
My name is Jeffrey Verigi. I'm a member of the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe. I'm an artist and writer. I am I guess I'm the introduction writer, the guy whose story you'll see first in Marvel Visions #1.
Marvel Voices started with a podcast run by Angelique Roche, who brought together a bunch of different talent and new voices all across Marvel Comics, but also entertainment, people who loved Marvel characters and wanted to talk about them. And that podcast evolved into a one-shot that came out earlier this year that was quite successful. That was our very first Marvel Voices comic ever. And then this year, we've been looking for ways to, really tap into everything that's going on in the world right now and address it. So the Marvel Voices program has expanded partly as a result of that. And I pitched the idea of doing an Indigenous Voices issue in November because I'm not Indigenous myself, but I'm adopted, and my adopted mom is part Cherokee. So I kind of grew up with a lot of stories about the Trail of Tears and like the history of Native Americans. And so it's a story that's really close and personal to me, and I was excited to bring Jeffrey into it.
Just as a Native American, to be able to be a part of this project, to have my work and my voice added to it, and being able to write for some of the characters that you grew up with and love has just been an amazing opportunity. And to see the various Native artists and writers that have been brought in, some of whom are friends of mine, is joy. It's just pure joy, joyous occasion for Native America, for Indian country.
So Jeffrey can talk about a lot of the characters that he got to do because he got to cover a really wide swath of stuff. But the three main stories in the issue are by Rebecca Roanhorse and Weshada Vitra did a Echo story. Echo is a great character who comes out of the Daredevil history. She has photogenic reflexes, so she can watch someone, pull like a really intense action move, and then she can mirror it exactly. And the other really interesting part of her character is that she's deaf, so she kind of interacts with other characters differently and has different senses as a part of that. And we had a lot of fun kind of playing with that in the story. The second story is by Darcy Little Badger and Kyle Charles, and they did a Danny Moonstar Mirage story. So Danny Moonstar is one of the New Mutants, and she has the power to see into the mind of her opponent and pull out their fears and their desires and manifest them into illusions. So she's often able to drive away enemies by showing them the thing that they fear the most. She's doing some really cool stuff over in New Mutants, and it was really fun to be able to kind of tap into the new X world that has come out over the past couple of years. And then the third story is by Stephen Graham Jones and David Cutler, and it's a Silver Fox story where we went way back in Silver Fox history to before she had ever met Wolverine, and we actually established a first husband for her, so we did some new history there. And kind of dealt with her reaction to white people invading her people's land, and how she would have reacted to that back in the late 1800s. So we got to do some history diving there, which was really cool. And then Jeffrey got to do a whole bunch of them, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it was just a chance to touch on almost all the Native characters that have ever appeared in Marvel, from Wyatt Wingfoot to lastly Echo. So it was great to just touch on these lives. Some characters that I knew of, some I didn't actually know of. And I've been a comic fan since I'm 46 years old, so 42 years? So, and there was a lot that I didn't know. It was a chance to come up with a way to introduce these characters all in a way that seemed fitting and not forced. Was a fun challenge, and as a comic fan, as a Marvel comic fan, how I was able to solve that, allowed to solve that, it was a real treat for me. A chance to honor both legendary Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
I mean, I write fiction on the side, so I feel like thinking about comics and thinking about the structure of comics is always really helpful to me, because I'm looking for the kind of like splash page moments, how to make the most of a big reveal and get fans excited about characters that they may or may not be familiar with. So in terms of that, it's definitely taught me a lot of skills. But Jeffrey, I feel like you'll have a lot more applications.
Yeah, what helped shape me was my marketing job. Really did a lot. We worked a lot with nonprofits and relief and development groups, and just hearing the real life struggles and stories from not just locally here in America, but all over the globe. And hearing those stories and seeing how the writers at the agency would write such delicate subject matter, and learning how to evoke emotion and draw the right reactions from people really helped shape me as a writer and as an artist, thinking about the composition of pictures worth a million words. So if you only have one opportunity to share that, what is the main thing you're trying to communicate through this piece that you're creating? Looking at the masters, not just comic books, but just art in general. What were the artists saying? What were they trying to say? The colors that they're using, the composition, everything has a purpose, everything has a reason. And for me, studying all that stuff and continuously be a student of art and communication is key to what I do. And I need an anchor in reality. I need to make sure that even though I deal in a fantasy world, that what I'm seeing and observing outside of that needs to be injected into that art somehow. How can we make that real? Because it's those touch of reality that gives it real teeth to a reader, I believe.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the core of comics, especially like, Marvel's philosophy of world outside your window. Like, these are fantastical stories, but there is real heart buried in all of them, I think.
That's why I like that the Marvel Universe takes place in our world. It's not make-believe, and it's no disrespect to any other companies, because I love their products as well. But as a kid growing up, you knew these towns, you knew New York, you knew where LA was, you knew all these places. You could imagine where Avengers Tower, Avengers Mansion might be at the time. Well, it wasn't Tower then, but the mansion anyways. And Baxter Building. What would that look like in reality? For me, it just depends on what it is. I look at everything that's not what I'm doing, the exact opposite, and I just try to relax and I try to absorb. And if I see something that I like, I don't try to emulate or simulate what I'm looking at, but the core and the idea of what triggered that reaction in me. And I was like, okay, why did I feel like this? Why did I react this way, and analyze it from that perspective. And then, okay, and if I think I got the right idea, the right concept, then I can start sitting down and sketching out the idea of what it is what I'm trying to say.
I think as an editor, I'm often trying to help the writers and the artists get unblocked. And so I tend to dive into kind of Marvel history to try to do that, because that's what's so interesting about the big two comics, is that they have this incredible legacy. And every time that you take one of those characters, you want to tell a new story, which is very difficult. Captain America's been around for 75 years. How do you do something new with that? But at the same time, you want to tap into that legacy. You want to show readers that you're being respectful, that you remember some of the classic moments. So when I'm trying to help somebody unblock, I'll go back to a character's history or to some big Marvel moments, some big events, and say, hey, do you remember this villain that nobody's seen in 10 years? Like, what if we did something with him? Or remember that time that Carol Danvers used her powers this way? What if we did something new with that? So yeah, diving into history and pulling from there is where I tend to go.
And those are the Easter eggs. Those are the things we all love best too about when you're working on a project. It's those little nods that you get, and it's in any franchise really. If you pay attention to the history and you go there and you draw out these nuggets, from them, and just place them in a way that's not contrived but recognizable, and letting them see it. These are the things that make people go back and reread things and rewatch them. It's those kind of tidbits that make these stories so much fun. I have failed just as many times as I've succeeded, probably more so. When I was younger, I dealt with failure a lot harder. It's when you realize that it's a learning moment, that it is not a complete loss, that you recognize the good things that you've done, and then you go back and you ask the hard questions. Why wasn't this successful? Whether the editor rejected it, you ask the right questions. You make sure you got a very thick skin that you be able to absorb it and hear it, and hear what they're trying to say, not take it personally. Because a lot of times art, when you're creating something, you're making something, it's such a personal thing because you're putting a part of yourself into it. So always getting feedback, and the feedback that you don't want or not hoping for can be a tough thing for some people. You have to be able to get past that and remember that it's the final product that matters, because we're all on the same page, that we all want something very successful and successfully represented by every hand that's touched it. So if you're going to lose, make sure you ask the right questions and learn from it. I know everybody says that they're always learning opportunities, but the truth is, it really is. You have to accept that loss is going to be part of that. But remember the overall picture, that is just one battle, that the war is ongoing.
Yeah, as an editor, I'm obviously trying to prevent failure on all levels. And I guess the good part of being an editor is that I get to go to creators and say, like, this is what I really love about what's happening here. And then I can say, here's how I think we can make it better. The philosophy of editing at Marvel is always kind of like, you as the editor can't make something good, but you can make it better than it was. And so that's always the goal, is to be someone who lifts the talent up and helps them find those unblocking moments. But I also, I don't really like the word failure. I think that, like Jeffrey said, there's always a learning experience that you can get from it. And even books that are not commercially successful can still have a really important place in not only the hearts of the talent and the editors, but also an important place in the Marvel Universe, even if, only 10,000 people read that book. I think what we're learning, I think, also in mainstream comics is that there are a lot of different places that we can go. So you had books like Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, for example, which did not sell very many copies in individual issues, but the trades did very well because they knew how to find the right market for that, which was younger kids. So we are kind of learning as we go as well, and like trying to redefine failure in the mainstream world, because comics is a changing industry.
I think breaking the rules is important for innovation. First, to break the rules, you have to understand the rules. Why is everything being used in a certain way? Why is it here? What was the whole idea of why it was created? Once you understand that and grasp that, then you can start saying, okay, does this work? Why this isn't working? Or, what if we go this direction? It breaks us, but we can have a good explanation for why we're breaking that rule, why we're breaking that, and moving into that position. I think that you breaking the rules is a good thing, but you have to remember to honor the spirit of that which you're breaking. That it's art itself is an ongoing thing since the first cave drawings, and people were constantly breaking rules, but they've never got away from the core ideas of what makes great storytelling.
And I think good comics have to break the rules, right? Like, the greatest stories did. When Captain America quit being Captain America and became Nomad because he was on the run for the government, that was breaking all of the rules of what Captain America is. He is a patriot. He represents his country. So what is he when he's not that? But it worked so well because the story built off of, like, it asked a question: what is actual patriotism? What does it really mean to love your country? And so it reshaped that narrative, and Captain America was a very different character going forward.
Yeah, by breaking the rule, you shed more light on that, as opposed to having him stand like Steve Rogers does, but to have him go against that which he cherished, the values he loves and cherishes. That it's like, wow, why did he do that? You know, and oh, okay, I never thought of that before, but yeah, you get those aha moments. You give the reader the chance to have those moments. Okay, so I'm a child of the 70s, so I don't know if you guys were, but when I was a kid, there was still black and white TV on. There was still the old westerns, a lot of the serials, and I watched them, and I loved them, and I did not know I was Native American at the time. And I watched it. I thought my dad was a cowboy. I legitimately thought that was his job. And then one day, we were sitting in a car, and my mom turns around to me and goes, "Jeffrey," she goes, "You're Indian." And I got scared. I was, 3 or 4, and I told her, and I said, "Don't tell Dad." Because I thought my dad was going to kill me and shoot me, because the Indians were always shot and killed by the cowboys, that they were always bad. And I still think about that. And as a kid, my mom and we all joke around about it, but it made me think that nobody should feel that way. That's about a portrayal. But if you see something so much and so often that's what you believe is the truth, and reality is far from that. That Native Americans and so many other ethnicities have been vilified over the years, and we're to be able to reshape that narrative, to take it back, and to show the honor and the proud traditions of the culture by those who've lived it and are proud of it. That's why representation is important. It's for little boys, little girls, so they see something on screen, they see it, their culture represented, and to see it with pride. That's equal to anybody else who's looking at any other character that resonates with them from their culture, that they should be able to look upon those equally with the equal amount of pride, saying, yes, that could be me. That's me. That's what you want. That's what you hope for. You want that to be the new norm.
Definitely. It's really beautifully said. I mentioned earlier, Marvel has a saying that the Marvel Universe is the world outside your window, and that can't be true unless your characters and the talent who are behind writing and drawing those characters are also representing the world outside your window. So, yeah, it's about being truly realistic, like truly embracing everything that is available to us and all of the storytelling that is available to us. Because when we choose those narrow, older viewpoints, we're blocking so many other new stories that can be told. So that's what I really want to find. I want to find the new stories and the unturned corners. And as someone who is also queer, like, queer people have had to look for their representation in really, negative spaces. Queer villains who became like icons of a sort. And so I want to live in a world where we can have, positive representation too, where we don't have to like take the dregs of what society is giving us. So yeah.
And that's the great thing about what we're doing is we're setting the new standard by doing this. What this conversation, the books that we're producing and we're working on, is for the kids that are the next generation growing up. They're going to see these things, and it's going to help usher in making jobs, future people like you and myself, much easier. and much more accepted, more mainstream.
And I think that's happening. That's why books like this make me so happy. And you know, the Marvel universe has had a lot of pieces of that for a long time. Like, you know, when you read an interview with Don McGregor about what he was trying to do when he was creating, when he was writing Black Panther and creating so many pieces of Wakanda, you know, there was a true love there for African culture, and he talked to people who had more experience with him. So there's a history of that in the Marvel universe that we want to pull out more. Now we want to open it up so it's not just like, you know, white men having to ask their friends for advice. Like, we can hire a Black man to write Black Panther, you know. It's a different world, and I'm seeing a much better world. I feel very good about it.
Yeah, I see that as well, and I'm excited for that. Draw and read. You have to constantly draw, and don't just draw the superheroes, the characters, and just don't draw them flying or posing, but draw them sitting down, interacting with people, look at people, observe how people talk and move around each other, and then read everything and strengthen your mind. Think by stretching those muscles every day and feeding that source of where the ideas come from.
Yeah, that's definitely the core of it. It's just literally like do the work, do the reading, do the writing, do the drawing. I would say also, especially for young women, I want to say don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for advice. I get so many unsolicited pitches from men, and I've never gotten an unsolicited pitch from a woman. And you know what? I would take them. But you got to put yourself out there, and you got to be brave and go talk to pros in the industry. Go to Comic-Cons if you can, or contact them online. You know, do that reach out so that you can also feel like part of the community, because that's really what comics is in a lot of ways. It's a very particular niche community. And it's a really wonderful one. Like I've almost quit social media so many times, but I stay because the comics community there is so positive. So find people who are kind of on your ability level and, you know, form working groups with them, and then also reach out to other pros and get advice.
Yeah. And that's where we circle back to failure and loss, that you're not, the reality is you're not going to get every pitch is not going to be taken. Everybody's not going to like every drawing you've done or every story you've written. Ask the right questions. Ask what is it you don't like, and actually apply it to the next piece, and tell them, can I show you the next round, so you can show that you take criticism and that you can apply it. Take everything as a learning experience. You're going to have dark times as an artist and a creator. Things aren't going to always go your way, but if you remember why you're doing this, that passion that you had that set you out on this career to begin with, you hold on to that, and that's what you have to remember at those times, that, you know, that this is why I chose this. It wasn't because I wanted to do this or do that. It was because I just simply wanted to make art, and that's what you have to remember.